Whether you're working with a 15-inch cutter or a 24-inch cutter, there are some common challenges that will arise if they haven't already. Demoing on the Graphtec CE6000, I'm going to go over one common challenge that happens to come up whenever you start vinyl cutting a lot or you're just learning the machine, right? And that is perforated cuts or skipping, right? So they both mean the same thing. It just means you're not getting a direct cut whenever you're sending your design to the vinyl cutter. So it's actually perforating instead of being a clean cut. All right, so one thing you want to consider whenever you start to troubleshoot what's happening with your vinyl cutter is your cutting strip. All right, so we're going to come over here and take a look at that cutting strip. The cutting strip is a little black strip that runs across the vinyl cutter, and this is exactly where the blade is cutting your material. If you run your finger across this strip and feel any indentations or score marks in it, that is a prime example of what could be causing your material to skip when you're sending your design to cut. Those indentations or score marks on the cutting strip are typically caused by the blade depth or force, the amount of force that you're using to cut your design in your heat transfer vinyl. All right, so the first thing we want to consider whenever we have our blade in the blade holder or cartridge is how far out our blade is. That's considered the blade depth. All right, we always recommend as a measurement that you have the blade a half of a credit card's thickness. That way you know that your blade is set great every time, and now it's just down to what our force needs to be based off of the material we have loaded into the cutter. All right, so you should never have your blade out past a half of a credit card's thickness. As I mentioned earlier, force could play another role into why we're getting skipping or perforated cuts on our heat transfer vinyl. All right, so you can see here is the CE6000 Plus screen where we are at our main menu. And what we want to do is check our force. With Stahls heat transfer vinyl, rest assured that you will always have a cutting spec knowing what force you want to start at. So number 4 here on my menu is indicating that I'm at a force of 10 on the Graphtec. So before I send my design to cut, what I'm going to do is run a test cut to make sure my blade depth is accurate and my force is accurate for the material we're cutting. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit the right arrow key on my keypad there, and my test cut menu is going to pop up there, and I'm going to hit number 1, indicating that we're going to be testing our force. So for the type of test cut that I sent, it actually cut 3 different designs. Okay, so the middle one is going to be the force that I have set, which is at a 10. And then the one to the left is going to be 1 force down, so it cut that at a 9. And then the test cut to the right is going to be up 1, so that cut this at 11. So it's sending 3 so that I can know whether or not I have a dull blade in or not and need to either decrease or increase based off of the dullness of my blade. It seems like the middle one cut just fine, so I'd be okay to stay at the number 10 force. All right, so it's what I'm looking for here is that there's a small score mark on the carrier, making sure that I'm cutting through the material, but I'm not cutting through the backing, which is that carrier, right? If I cut through the backing, that's going to damage my cutting strip, which is then going to cause skipping or perforated cuts. If you happen to be experiencing this while you're in the middle of a job, we always recommend keeping an extra cutting strip on hand. You can order 1 pack and an additional 2 will be in here so that you can easily replace it. For more information on tips and tricks for vinyl cutting, visit the Stahls website or subscribe to our YouTube channel.